Okay, this is interesting.
Yeah.
So can this be more than a song? Because I noticed at the top it says audio.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. This is, so yeah, this is like, it could be a design for a chair. This could be anything. It could be a piece of software. It could be anything. And you then have, you can have different metrics. So you could have in a song, you have composition and work. So composition, which is the work, and then you have the recording, and you have different rights. So, the performers get the performance royalty, the recording, but the composers get the composition works. So there's at least two components there. But in the manufacture of something or the building of something, it could be design, could be manufacture, could be materials. There's all these different things, and someone needs to get paid for the materials. And so so actually, in a previous version, we did have different. There would be you can see this panel here. I can't highlight it. You could this panel here could be the composition. Mm-hmm. Panel underneath, another set of rights, could be another set of composition. In fact, I'm going to show you that, because can I show it to you easily? Yeah. It's hub.kendra.io. This was the previous iteration, and let's see, hub login. So if I just go to clips, I just show you tiny, yeah. So here it's kind of a little bit more, mm-hmm. but what we've got there is the composition was by Imogen, the design was by these people, and then the performance was by this, and here's all their splits, and here's a suggested split, but these all can be renegotiated and weighted. So perhaps if it's David Bowie singing the backing vocals, you pay him a lot of money, because he's going to be, well, okay, not now, but someone who's alive, you pay them a lot of money because they're going to they're going to bring in the crowd. So you wait there. You would wait this, and then individually you have so here's the performance split. Mm-hmm. And then here's the everything combined. And you would weight the, say, for example, here in this case, the performance, the total 100% of performance get 50% of the total amount. The recording gets 40%. And so in a manufacturing sense, you could have, the designers get this much, the manufacturers get this much, the materials, well, maybe that's interesting because the materials would have to get what they get. So maybe there would be a hard amount that materials get, and then, so that's flexible. And then there is a split between, a 60-40 split between the manufacturers and the what's it called, and the designers, or who knows? I mean, there could be different rules around this. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be all split in a particular, there's different ways of splitting because some people are working per hour and therefore it's not flexible, or there are, there are other ways of doing things. And I'm realize I'm going down a rabbit hole myself because but a lot of these, the whole Sensorica stuff was all about like just-in-time manufacturer, like 3D printing and so forth. So you weren't doing huge runs. You were doing it on a per basis, and therefore you could give, a specific kind of a split based on that. But yeah, okay, it's there's lots of options there. So back to this. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yes, we could apply this to anything, and we could also have nested rights within rights, and also different types of rights per thing. Mm-hmm. So interestingly, you've got, and then you could base on those rights. So if you've got, for example, recording rights, composition rights, performance rights, on one object, different types of rights per object, different splits per object, per right per object, then you can do things with them. So we can say when money comes in, it goes to only the composers. It doesn't, it gets split between lots of different, or when there's a decision to be made, it's only the performers that can decide. So
also this can help you figure out who makes the decisions.
Yeah, because there's a sense of ownership. So when money comes in, and ownership doesn't necessarily mean who gets the money, but revenue. It's like ownership ownership is you can define ownership however you like. Ownership is about, in some cases, who administers this, who decides what goes in here. Then it could be, you basically you shouldn't necessarily use ownership you should always need to define what you mean by ownership, because there's so many different interpretations. Because one person could mean who makes the decision, one person could mean who gets the money. And so there are different things. There's probably other things, there should be other things. Who makes the decision about where this thing could be used, or who we sell the chair to, and then so voting on issues around a particular object, and a proposal that I'm working on at the moment is all about artists having a voluntary tax on their artworks, putting any revenue from that tax into a pot, and then it being voted on. And it could be voted on by the public as well as the artists, or it could be some pots get voted on just by the artists, some pots get voted on, so by public, about what happens with that money, So there's so many ways of cutting it. So what we want to do with this kind of model is create a really fluid way of building your own way of your own model of democracy, and then see what works. And because so I'll go back to the adapters. Cloud, workflow cloud. So because all of these are built using, so if we take, let's go back here, and then all of these are built using just a JSON. For the reason why, this is a kind of like a mini coding, a way of specifying what's happening. This is not a good example because there's nothing. It's a widget that we had to hard code that we are going to bring into code. So let me get a good example of this. Something that's more, this one itself. This listing of the workflows is itself a workflow. So I think I'm not an expert at this because Darren's been creating this kind of way of working, but I think this basically calls it's very API based. So we're calling the API of how to get the workflows, and then this is us building that grid. So a good one to show you might be MusicBrainz, because that's available to everyone. Where is that? MusicBrainz. So launch that. So if I type in Sting, then this will list all the artists from MusicBrainz that are called Sting or have Sting in their name. And the workflow for that is this calls MusicBrainz. So we've kind of, this isn't the raw code. This is kind of like, we've got some code in the background that takes these variables and these kind of flows and pushes them into code that then goes and asks the API for certain um, uh, data, and then we need to map it, and then we need to display it. And so we've kind of built, it's a little bit like what you might get if you've seen Automator in macOS, or Scripts on the iPhone. I think it's called just Scripts actually on the iPhone.
I'm not getting this at all. I'm sorry.
You're not understanding it?
No, I'm not understanding it. What do you mean by workflow?
Okay, thank you. So for us to build a dashboard, the main aim is to, well, there's two aims. One is to enable the user to build a set of local data, and also to manage a set of remote data. And the remote data is on all these services. And the idea around, so we have Bandcamp and Chant and Bloom. And so I just installed all of those adapters into this system. So those are ways of connecting with the external service. So if we go to Bandcamp and then view that, there is nothing there, which is strange because we do actually have a workflow for Bandcamp. But if I go, let's do Music Brains. If maybe that's there, or maybe that isn't there. Maybe it was just one that was got created. Let's do.
Can we bring this back to my example again of a global hackathon, and you tell me how exactly this might work?
Sure.
Like, what would a workflow be?
Okay. So you have a number of layers and a number of options with that. As you were saying that, I was thinking, okay, so there's developers who code. That's one level. Then there's people in this Kendra IO framework. There is people who create integrations, which need to know how to code, because to create a workflow or an adapter, you don't need to know how to code. You just need to know what the rules are around the specifying sort of the code for connecting into an API, or what the API needs to expose, and then how to define the grid. So, okay, it's huge. All right. So this is pseudocode. How we build these screens is pseudocode. So I don't know what you're planning on doing, but I'm just saying. So if I needed to say, because I want to do hackathons too, and I'm thinking, okay, so we can have developers there, but we can also have non-developers who are just writing the higher level of view, and then we'll probably get another level which is much more interface, which is will be because this at this stage it's to do pseudocode, even that is a bit nuts. We want to be point and click, and so the pseudocode would be what kind of button do you want. No, sorry, the WYSIWYG would be what kind of button you want, drag it in, and it would all be much more user-friendly. So a non-coder could do it. And then, so we'd have like 3 levels of participants. And then, I'm not saying this is what you should do. I'm just saying this is what, what I would do in this situation, I think, given this project. And so, and then actually people creating content. So maybe there's a 4th layer. So I think
I need a story.
Yeah. So it's okay. I'll get there. So your need to create a shared object, a shared rights. What we could just say, I'm just gonna we'll let people decide what they want that to mean. Because shared, it could be rights in the money flowing in, could be rights in deciding what happens in the object. The object could be a group, could be an organization. We could create a virtual organization that then has rights attached to it, rights about if money comes into that organization and there's profit, or the idea of profit, who gets that? That's one set of, that's like the analogy of shares. And then there's voting shares, and there's different, you could have different kinds of shares, splits, rights within that object, be it an organization, or be it a material, a thing, a digital representation of a work of art, or being a piece of code. So in some cases, if you want to create a thing in code and then have rights about it, then it depends on what people want that code to do. For example, do they want that code to be sellable or not? Is it open source, or what kind of license? And you may want to set those things at the beginning. You may want to say, or you may want to say, we have a number of working groups that can exist. One of them is create one or more organizations that are for profit that do something. Two is create one or more organizations that are non-profit that do something. And then another one is same with like, and that's where you would host your for-profit or say sellable piece of software or non-sellable piece of software, yeah. And you may want to decide and limit these things prior to setting up this hackathon, because if you make it too wide, people might just spend the whole, you might get loads of, you need to define some parameters, some constraints from the start so that people know what they're coming along to. Or if there's enough, otherwise it might just be too dispersed, because you might get 100 people and then everyone's got a different idea. But if you kind of lock it down a little bit beforehand, then you'll get maybe 2 groups or 3 groups, and that's enough to get something going. And then I would put personally, I would put, the reason I'm doing this is interoperability. Doesn't necessarily mean it's what have I been saying? Join the dots. No, it's not join the dots. A joined up world. I want a joined up world where everything is flowing from everything else, and everything understands everything else. Doesn't necessarily mean we don't have for-profit companies. It doesn't necessarily mean we only have open source software. That's not my view. My view is I want the user to be able to own their data and be fluid with what services they use.
Okay.
Hence, this is what I'm showing you is the beginning of that model where the user can bring in the services. They can just install the services that they want instantly, and then start working with them remotely. So rather than going to the website, I'm now interacting with those services locally in my app. And it doesn't look as pretty as their website, but the thing about the interface is it's consistent to the user, and the user can decide what color they want to see in. Because basically, when I go to Google or IMDb or Amazon or Etsy or eBay or whatever, I'm just looking for stuff. I don't care about the color scheme, and I don't care about the font. In fact, I'm distracted by all of the shit that they put around that information. Pisses me off. And so I want a consistent view to my life. And I want to, when I'm looking for flights or looking for trains or whatever, I just want to see it in one way that I'm used to. and so this is about that. So this is about, at the moment, we've made some decisions, but ultimately the user will be able to skin this however they want, but the service won't be able to decide on how it looks. They will just be supplying information. Sorry, that's your role now. You're not telling me how, my world looks. You're just supplying me information. And if I can't get it from you, I'll get it from somewhere else.
So,
Yes.
um, so your solution to the problem of non-interoperability is to create something where even if companies aren't, I mean, are they working with you to be interoperable? Do they
Yeah,
want?
even if they don't participate or don't have any money to create an open protocol, or let alone adapt their systems to run an open protocol. Even if they can't do that, we can still plug into them. I mean, the fact is that more and more companies are getting APIs because they see the value in doing that. When Kendra.io app takes off, and people start using it as the way of getting their data. It's the way to look at it is it's not a web browser, it's a data browser, right? That's how generic I want it to be, you know, so design decisions are, you know, we have to think about, you know, anyway, in terms of how it's the governance of it. I haven't thought
Data
about that.
browser. Give me specific examples of how I could then browse.
But I will do, but you hit the nail on the head, is that even if the company, to drive interoperability, this was the thing, for 20 years, I was trying to get the media industry to be interoperable. And come on, let's build an open protocol. And there are bits and bobs. Yeah, there's DDEX is a very good example of that. But in other industries, they did it in the banking industry, open banking in the UK, and that's amazing. I mean, but it takes a lot of effort. But this way, as long as they have an API, we can plug into it, and then we can harmonize. We can mash up different APIs into one view, and that changes the ball game, because it means, yes, that the expense is now on a community of people to create these workflows. It's on, actually, the expense is on Kendra.io to create an easy way of building a workflow, building an adapter, and just plugging into the...
Okay, can I just interrupt you and describe what I think you're saying?
Yeah.
So basically you're giving people the opportunity to create new interfaces and new ways to use the programs, like say Spotify or something that they already use, in different ways without a company like Spotify joining in the effort in adopting a common protocol.
Yeah, Spotify already have an API.
Okay.
And so do many other companies. Sometimes you need to apply for it. Sometimes you don't get it. Sometimes, you know, I just discovered recently Spotify has an analytics API for record labels. It's very high end. We can't get access to it. I'm trying to find a record label that can basically sponsor us, and that will happen eventually. It's so that we can then build a tool that record labels can use. They would put in their own key, and then they would use this tool to find do what they need to do with Spotify's API. But yeah, more and more companies are doing that. And yet the key thing here is they don't need to do anything. It's too expensive for them to think about this. So we're making it easy. So rather than forcing an industry to build an open protocol to interoperate, which ends up being quite a solid thing that has a committee around it, and it's really turgid, actually. No, it's not turgid, but to all the open protocol people out there, I love them. I love you. But by the way, yeah, we haven't decided if this is going to be a public or not. But anyway, it doesn't necessitate them doing anything as long as they have an API, and a lot more companies do, right? So you wanted to see. So yeah, this is so one user could be totally different from another user. One user could bring in certain So here, this is quite interesting. So we've got, show me all the adapters that are photo based on photos. Show me all the adapters that are based on streaming. Show me all the adapters based on music, right? So we've got a lot more of those. That's what we've been concentrating on. So we can group adapters, and that's a fun thing. I'm new to this. I'm a photographer. Oh well, just download all the photography adapters, and then what are the services you use? Well, I use Unsplash, so I'll install that. That's.
So when I first met you, it seems to me like there's been a change in your thinking, because when I first met you, it was more for a photographer to be able to have a dashboard to upload their photos by one dashboard instead of going to 5 different websites to do it. This seems different, like what you're trying to do. It seems like there might be more use cases for groups trying to do.
Totally. This is huge. This is huge. This is huge in so many ways, because the things that constrained us before in terms of data access are no longer constraining us. There's we've just been riffing on a theme. So yeah, we started in the Blumen project, got some funding. Oh, let's do a dashboard for artists. Yes. And then, we could add other things here. And so when we start actually building it, so for example, one very interesting thing is a general problem that people have is role models, the model of the roles of how you, not role models as in people, but the user models, how you do roles within services. So I have a company, I'm plugging into a service, and I need to give billing something and editors another thing. And sometimes the service does have a role model where a user model where you can assign roles to people and you can add them in. But for example, Twitter doesn't, right? It's just, you've got one login and you have to share that with everyone in the company. And if you just want to give them access to read something or read the statistics, you have to give them access to everything.
So wait, I'm sorry. I just need to rephrase to make sure I'm even getting you.
Yeah.
So basically, you're trying to work around the limitation that these companies are giving you. Like when you go to Twitter, you have to follow those rules that they set up for the dashboard.
Yeah.
This adds like another layer on it, so you can give Twitter some services that it doesn't actually have, but you can see.
Because we are able to we're working through the Twitter API, we'll be able to take each one of those calls, a view or a post, like pushing stuff out or bringing stuff back. We can isolate those out, and then we can build the super user could then assign certain API functions to certain people, but because it goes through their kind of proxy, their API proxy. And I've got to get some water, but this is sort of kind of like, okay, hold on a second. So we just discovered that. We just discovered that this is a possibility when, it's just like, oh yeah, so can we just, oh my God, and then again, some services do implement this kind of way of working, some don't. And, if you have if you're managing a service for multiple companies, then you need to set up an account for each one. Then managing that becomes a real pain, because you're you have to have multiple logins, and if the service allows you to switch between logins, that some do, some allow you to do that, then that's great. But if they don't, you need to log out and log in again. It's pretty nutty. And so what, in my wildest dreams, what would happen is that we'll start putting this out there. People will start, and by the way, we're not launching, we're just bringing companies in one by one, turning them on, getting them switched on, getting them useful, and learning at the same time. And I love that way of working, because we're building relationships with companies that are actually using this and building it out at the same time. And that means it's much more of a solid thing. And also, we know it's a much more easeful expansion, rather than, oh my God, we've got to get everything prepared for the launch day. I mean, that's just so stressful, you know. Yeah. And so what was I just saying? Yes. So
for example, you could have a Twitter account. And so this also leads to a question I'm sure you've gotten, is that is there some way for this to be managed by DAOs and smart contracts?
Yeah, totally. I mean, this is just an interface, right? It connects into APIs. Essentially, there are different types of APIs. There's RESTful, there's GraphQL, there's smart contracts. So we could build a wallet into this that then plugs into smart contracts, so we can then have a graphical interface to manipulate smart contracts. And essentially, you know, the reason why this is potentially successful, as in potentially might get some adoption, is that generally things look pretty much the same. You know, like if I go to so here's the actual project that's funding us. I wonder what happens if I do this. Does that actually work? Didn't think it would. But anyway, it looks good. Come on, come back to me. Okay, reload. Does this work though? This should work. Yes. Services pretty much are, they might put a lot of fluff around it, but they pretty much are list and, you know, edit, and, you know, that's pretty much what happens. And in all of these things, so or do a search. Wonder what will happen if I do this. Okay, it's not online. So users view. Okay, it's not online. Let me get another one. I want to show you another one. Workflow. So I showed you the Music Brains, bands in town. Again. So artist distinct, maybe. Again. Yeah. Okay. There's his gigs, but like you'd see that in a different way. You would okay, you can click on things to get more information. You could basically, that's what services do, whether it's flights, whether it's whatever, it's like search, find, or I should really show you also. Okay, I'm going to need to show you in a different way. No, not that one. Okay, so yes, I know what to do. Things keep changing, which is great. It's great fun because this is how I did it last week. So view, and then okay, so edit work. So forms. Big, you know, this is another aspect. So so the way that we define a form and build a form is again using this workflow builder. And so we've got all the aspects of it. We've got search, we've got display, and we've got forms. and it's very basic, but moving from this very basic, we can mimic and work with lots of different services. That's effectively what they're doing. Display information, take an object, edit an object, whether it's a domain name provider or a health thing or whatever. And that's nuts when you start to think about it like that we can really simplify the interfaces for all of these things. And that's the first step. The next step is when you start actually harmonizing these things, when you get similar objects across different services, or you want to post when you post your gig to multiple places like Facebook and Songkick and Bandcamp and or Bands in Town, and you want to post it to multiple places. It's a bit like Hootsuite. Hootsuite works for social posts, but this works for anything if you get the mapping correct, and it can also bring stuff back. So if we go to that, where was that thing that? Okay, so adapter. There's a Kendra IO install and install the example, and we can also do graphing. So is it in example view product chart? Yeah, I'm finding these now. There you go. View. Okay. Right. I found some things have changed a lot recently. And I believe it's the only way of getting into these things. Save. Oh, no. Here we go. Example.
Can I just ask you a question?
Please. Yes.
What do you think would be the ideal combination of people to look at this together to kind of brainstorm what you could actually do with this? You could have anyone. Would it be like a combination of an artist and like, tell me who you'd like to get together?
Well, there's different ones. One is people with money. People with money, or people who know how to get money, or whatever. That's one. I don't really want to go out to artists too much yet, because it's going to fail them. If they're really keen, and one person, if it's really keen and they have lots of time and they really want to make this work, then great. And they can dedicate them and their staff, getting someone like that who really got this and had resources to work on it, that would be cool. But to get someone who, the problem at this stage is it's not really fit for general artists to come and, we're still working on where do we save things and how to, and I got to tell you about the cloud as well. So, and then developers and service, to be honest, service providers, people who have APIs, boom. People who have APIs so we are working with an organization called Tiosto, which is they are the CMO, the collective rights organization in Finland. So it's a huge coup for us, actually. We weren't expecting to get someone as big as them, but they've built an API and they need someone to visualize it. So they need someone to build an API client, and we're doing it. So they're going great. And one of the guys is actually going around talking at conferences and showing them what we've done, right? So it's awesome. So really the thing that's driving us at the moment is the service providers, integrating the service providers. I mean, I'm a member of a few collectives. I've got a couple of songs released, and there's a couple of other guys in the development team that also have. So we're kind of slowly getting there about how could we integrate. It's very difficult to integrate with CMOs. Basically, that's where you get a lot of your revenue from as an artist, from rights organizations, but you have to, it's quite a manual process. So we're really trying to make that a bit more fluid. But so really, I think companies who have, basically what I'm spending a lot of my time doing is talking individually with companies who we are working with. Come on, where's your API? Okay, we've got your API. Now let's try something. Let's play something. Okay. And so we're building it out like that. And it feels the most wholesome way at the moment. We're not dealing with people saying, why is that not there? Well, I want this. I want this. This needs to be that. We're not doing that. It's just like, okay, great. I can list that. Yeah. And that's a really nice environment at the moment to be.
It seems to me like it would be super helpful if you could gather a group of people together who could look at it and start getting ideas of what exactly you could build with it, so you could get specific stories of different ways people could use it in order to
be really honest, I don't know if that's, I don't think that's going to be the problem. I think the problem is incremental. It's like the Bloomin' Money, and I'm just coming back to just practicalities. I'm and my team are in an awesome position at the moment. It is wonderful. We're not volunteering. We are getting paid to do this. This could not happen unless we were being paid. So we are in a very luxurious position that actually doesn't come across when in the day-to-day, when I'm talking to people and other people who are just struggling along with their SMEs or whatever, we're in a very luxurious position. We're being paid to do research, So, and this only happens because we don't have a remit to make money. We have no one breathing. We have no shareholders breathing down our neck. And I think that creates a kind of an environment that can easily be looked over. So I am actually, I'd say we've got enough for the middle of next year, but still that's going to come really quick. And I want to, so my part of my remit is really big to get more funding. And one way to do that, one way that sweetens that is having partners that can say, we love what you're doing here, we'll endorse you. So that's another reason why I want to have companies that actually have APIs working with us. So because that feeds into building up our kudos, building up our value within the industry, and therefore some different, whether directly or indirectly will bring us money because for the inference, the kudos. So in terms of what we need, well, actually, in terms of ideas, that will happen. We know it will happen. That's not what I actually need. In a sense, to work with a set of people who are coming up with amazing ideas. I even have to sort of like bat down people in the team saying, no, look, that's great. Make an issue from it. But today we're not doing that. Yes, we could do a lovely interface. The interface that we will build will obviously be something like, what's that film with Tom Cruise in it? The one where he's just moving it. What's that something, and he's moving everything around. It's the future and the future. What's that called? Anyway, every film but that one's coming up, where you got people in the pool and they're swimming and they're fortune telling and telling them about the crimes. Anyway, that kind of interface where everything is moving around, that's the kind of interface we're going to build, right? It's just obvious. So I don't think we just have to incrementally, and we've identified some tools that we can use to get there, but there's no point building it yet because there's some fundamental stuff that we need to do. And it's almost like funny. Ideas are cheap, but what we do need is integrations. We need real companies building integrations into their APIs. There's loads of APIs out there. There are, so you don't need to be a coder to build a workflow. And for example, la 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 la. I just wanted to show you that. Can I just show you the? Where did it go? This is another thing that's navigation is sometimes an issue, but bear with me. I just want to show you this before I forget it. It's not necessarily on the thread that we're doing, but in terms of visualizations, we can visualize stuff like that. Then I can go into, I can create charts of stuff, but I can change the thing, update it, and it changes it into a line chart. I can change this again, change it to pie.
And what are these things that we're seeing?
It's random. It's actually just fake data, but we wanted to put it in there.
Data about what exactly?
I'll read it. Random stuff. It's not pulling it. We're self-generating it as a set of data that we can then use to show that we can visualize stuff. But this could be a sales report. This could be whatever, you know, very easily. Okay, so on to what we need. And these things are quite easy to build because you can just say take. You can take a working example, and then you can just say, well, I'll just edit it. I'll add in a new API, and I'll edit it. So copy it, and then, you know, learn by example. And I think what would be awesome, I'm not saying this is necessarily what you have to offer, but what would be awesome is if we could get a bunch of people, rather than coming up with ideas, but actually just getting in and starting to use it and going, shit, that doesn't work. Because we're not going to get away with the way to is we're doing everything incrementally. It's iterative design, incremental design, and we are where we are, and we need to move to the next step. What do we need to do? Then when we're there, we look around and go, oh my God, look at that. It's over there. Okay, let's do that. And we're literally doing that because we have the freedom to do that. And it's very, I do feel blessed because this is not the normal way of working. And
so you need a group of people who will jump in and not be like, oh, this isn't working.
Yeah.
I can't do anything. You need a group of people who basically just experiment, just to understand where technology, where it can go, and how, to kind of get ideas in terms of this is like the new workflow of the future.
Yeah, well, actually, we need people to actually get in and start using it. I mean, I'm not saying this is what you have to offer, but so in the README of this in GitHub, we've got a couple of links, but one of the links goes to some documentation that describes what's going on here. So this could be updated. This could be, this is a very good first step for people to have a look at. And then, but basically, rather than thinking too much, we need people to just dive in and start using it, or have a localized need. Like, I want to list Airbnb. It's okay, so I'm going to go to Airbnb API. I want to see if I can get an API. I want to see if I can list something on API. Okay, okay, right. So, I need to be connect to millions of travelers on Airbnb. I think I need to register. I've never done this before, but I need to do this. This is what I want. I want people that are hungry because then I can list all of this stuff, not using Airbnb's web interface, but using our app interface. And bear in mind, I'm showing it to you in a website, but it will be a mobile app, and it will be a iPad app and that kind of stuff as well. So.
Okay, so what can you do Kendra right now? What are the actual things that work that,
We have a number of workflows and adapters that are already in place, but we're also, as we do this, we're building tools, we're building the adapters within the app, we're building the workflows within the app, so we're building tools to build. So it's not just, this is the nuts thing about it, we're going up and we're going down, you know. So from this imaginary place of I want to be able to see everything, we're going, how can we make it easier for people to visualize and build? And then, you know, and also, how do we build the tools so we can plug into APIs easily? So I don't know how this is going to play out. The wonderful thing is we've got there are lots of examples out there. Like I said, lots of companies have APIs. It's a lifetime's work, but if we collaboratively, so within the app, it's not only as a single user, how do I manage my world? It's also as someone who wants to contribute to the development of the ecosystem. Oh, you built an adapter. I'm just going to take that. I'm going to clone that. I'm going to create another one. I'm just going to add another workflow to the Airbnb service. And so we're building a development environment within this, and also thinking, how can we make it easy for non-developers to develop as well? So it's nuts. It's really nuts. And this wasn't what we were thinking when we first started this. We're doing a rights management tool. And then we realized that because we're open source, because we're non-profit, we don't have the constraints. Our motivation is just to harmonize and to interoperate and to, have a joined up world. Yeah.
well, I mean, I think it would be, I would love to see, first of all, like the DAO people just take a look at the stuff, because there's, I think, adding smart contracts to this, but this has such a visual aspect that's easier to understand and to explain to people. And then having the actual kind of like voting, combining this stuff with actual voting on proposals would be.
I mean, this is effectively a smart contract builder, because that's what smart contract sometimes, in its simplest form, will take in a chunk of Ether and then split it out to multiple accounts. And this is the visual representation of that. So if we could then create or edit the smart, I don't know how you can edit smart contracts, but or clone, create new. So yes, lots of opportunity there.
And then people, I think that you should also these people building these can create patterns of smart contracts that can successfully do certain things, right? And you can publish the patterns.
Yeah. I mean, all of this is, as I showed you in the beginning. I want to show you the cloud. Okay, so the cloud. Where's okay? So the idea is we've got a cloud that in much in the same way that with the adapters, you can add. So in a commercial sense, a cloud would be, we've got some servers and we're hosting your data. In our sense, we have no servers. We're not hosting your data. We're just connecting up all of your existing services into a common place for you to be able to use. And so what's interesting is your cloud providers, things, Dropbox, all these kind of things, Google Drive, they will have different roles and relationships to a person. Some of them are shared, some of them are private, some of them are temporary, whatever, and you can create shared spaces, and then have that within your cloud. So, and then you can share definitions of adapters and workflows and work on them collaboratively.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no, because you know, traditionally in coding, you'd use GitHub as a kind of a common way, but we're not restricted to that because we're not, strictly speaking, working with code. It's a kind of a pseudocode. And
GitHub is very poor visually.
Yes, and it's built for developers. What we're doing is building something for you know, we would like to get out, escape from that just developers to more concept people, and then to artists, and yeah, I think at all stages you will need a concept of flow, of movement, of data, and if you actually want to edit this stuff, if you want to play with the actual definitions, but then again you don't need to, you know. But we're kind of breaking down the rules around a particular collaborative spaces. That's, I guess, I'll be able to.
I think that, I'm sorry, I keep interrupting you, but
Please.
That so basically companies are kind of restricting us to the way that they want to control the data.
Yeah, but it's
right?
It's through no fault of their own. It's the way it's set up. It's not. I couldn't imagine it. We're able to do what we're doing because our remit is not for profit. Is not to, you know, we don't charge a subscription. We don't have a service. This is not a service. There's no service behind this. It's lovely. It's just lovely. You know. I do not have. We may have some test servers, but we do not have a server that will host people. They're going to use all their existing stuff. So, yes, through no fault of their.
Basically, what you're doing is allowing people to change the data flow, the way data flows between programs.
Yes. Because I thought that the way that I wanted the world to work was that businesses would interconnect and interoperate and allow me to move my data from one business to another. But now I realize I don't need you two guys. I don't need you to interoperate, because actually I can, as long as you expose your information via an API that you're working via it, I can connect into you. I can own my data. I can make a post. I can have all of my social posts, all my social comments, everything I can own that now, and I can give permission to a particular service to replicate that. But I hold the master. It's a total. So I'm now in control of my world, and I will, send stuff out, bring stuff back based on, I will give permission to a particular service to know my name if I want to, and so so potentially this is why I'm, totally wedded to this, is that it might seem like, oh, it's just this, or it's connecting into a few businesses, but actually, ultimately, I think this provides total freedom, because it's just, yes, because I'm going to have my core data here,
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and I'll choose where it's hosted. I could host it on the blockchain. I can host it on wherever private places, I choose, and then I choose who gets access to it. And it won't happen overnight, because this is the thing, we're all locked into businesses at the moment. Mm-hmm. So, and a classic thing that happens in this realm, in this kind of future world that we want to live, is I will build a whole new world and I'll invite my friends to it. But the problem is they're all on Facebook. So actually, this is about the strategy of how do I move a set of people and a set of kind of constructs from one place to another. It has to be done very slowly, has to be done, it can't be a jump, and it also has to be done, we need to integrate to everything that currently people are using and make it better. So I want to search for a holiday home for a weekend in 2 weeks. I want to search Airbnb, I want to search Couchsurfing, I want to search all these different places, 100 different places, bring me back the results. I don't want to go to each website individually. I just want to do one search. And Google doesn't do that. Google.
So people could, okay, so you're saying that someone could make up an interface to go out and get a certain kind of data, and then they could publish that kind of workflow that they've created
Right.
and then share that.
Yeah, they publish the workflow because in the workflow cloud, and we can work on it collaboratively in the workflow cloud. So these are all in the cloud. So you can, when you log into app, why don't you do that? Can you open up another screen, log into app.kendra.io?
Okay, hang on just a second. Hang on.
But better in Chrome rather than Safari, if that's an option.
Okay. Pause. Do you mind if I pause the recording and just go to the bathroom for a second?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen then.
You could do. I could just tell you what to do and just to give you but you could share your screen, that'd be a laugh.
Okay.
Cool. So, isn't that interesting?
What?
In French.
Oh, bienvenue.
I didn't know it was going to do that. I didn't know it was going to do that. Some of the stuff is translated and some of it isn't. But yeah, it's all translatable. That's really important for us as well.
Okay, so what am I doing?
Just go to Workflow Cloud.
Okay.
And that's the workflows that are available for you to play with right now. But unfortunately, some of them are password protected because Tiosto, for example, we're working with them, but it's not public. The code is public, but the data behind their API isn't public. So, and that's another thing that things can be private, and that's as it should be, So anyway, something that you could have a look at is the Music Brains. So if you launch Music Brains, if you click on the launch, and then you just put in an artist name that you want to check out.
Okay, who should I put in?
Anyone. Who's your favorite artist?
Oh, I don't know. Difficult question.
Okay.
Just name someone.
Who did you last listen to?
Oh, here. Okay, now what do I do?
That's it for the moment because we haven't built any more workflows than that, but that's plugging into their API, doing a search. So it's like, find me a house, it's whatever it is. Okay. So we're doing deep searching rather than, Google doesn't offer deep searching because it hosts everything on its servers. This is all about not having servers and plugging directly into the service. But the thing is, we could search across multiple services at the same time. It wouldn't matter. It's all possible.
Okay, so Google has their own servers. Does this include the Google servers and other things, or access to things that the Google servers don't access?
Google doesn't access this kind of data because it doesn't have the connections. They'd have to do what we're doing, which is have a relationship with every. The thing is, I think once this comes out of the bag, no, actually, Google does have a dashboard, and out in the world, there's a big industry in creating dashboards, and you plug into all these service providers, the difference about, I do kind of like wonder how are we different from that? The way we're different is that we are, it's bi-directional. We're not just pulling data from them and then displaying it.
Mm-hmm.
We're pushing data out. We're doing all kinds of things, So I would want to be able to find a house, find a flight, and then actually book it through this system.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to have to go anywhere else. So that's kind of but yeah, it's just a question of building the workflows for the service. Most services expose pretty much all of their functionality that they have on the website via an API as well.
Okay.
Then, yeah.
So the first generation you're saying is a kind of aggregator company who goes out and searches all of these sites and then aggregates the search and then brings it back to you.
Well, okay, so you could say Google,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they hosted it. They host all of that data on their own servers, then do a search of their servers and give you that data.
Okay.
So it could be stale. Then the dashboard people, they're giving you tools to connect directly into the services that you use. So they don't host any of the data themselves.
Okay.
And then this is kind of doing that, but also allowing you to, rather than just displaying, because really, literally, the dashboard companies just display graphs and charts, and this is what's happening. It's not interactive, whereas this is interactive. And yeah, there is a danger. It's maybe a danger that Google is already doing this,
Mm-hmm.
but interacting with people's APIs is difficult. And if we can make it a community-led thing, and we can do it in it's slightly stealth at the moment, but if we build up enough companies and enough people working on workflows and things like that and building them, then it's just like, then it becomes it just sort of self-fulfilling, and why would anyone do anything else? Although they probably will try and do something else. But
And I think that from what I've seen so far is that the tools you have to visualize smart contracts and decide on those rights are so powerful.
Yeah.
Because that's it, right now, trying to collaborate with people and trying to decide who gets what and what's of value. And the discussions of this take so long.
Yeah, but if you could just go to, actually, why don't you go to the workflow cloud again?
Okay.
And then, so you have that interface that I showed you. If you go to the audio clips, the third one down, and launch that, then if you just do plus, if you just type anything there and then just go plus and then type stuff again, just random shit, doesn't matter, random, la 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 la, and then la la la. So these are all different people or different people that might have a right to a particular object. Yeah. Oh. And each one of those bars is so you can create and demonstrate that and say, look, we can create an interface to a smart contract. And the thing about this is, what I want it to do is, I want to have you have that interface there, I have that interface here, and we share the same object and we work on the same object. So somehow this is going to be interactive, where when you move a slider, I'll see it and I'll see it in mine. So then we have a group discussing what the rights around a particular object should be. And then at one point we can go agreed, and we just go all agreed, and someone, John, is not agreeing, and we talk to him a little bit, and then he agrees, or he doesn't, or he creates a different proposal. So there is, there's the stage of creation, negotiation, and then agreement, in this. So we need to build a workflow around that. And this is just the basis of it. It's not, but there's no reason why we can't do a kind of real-time interaction.
So you could have a completely different conception of work that you're talking about, and maybe 20% is development work.
Yeah.
And then you add something totally different, 10% is emotional labor.
Yeah. Look, you can
who makes the decision, so you can make
right.
really different flow.
Right. And you can say one is about who gets fed, one is about who gets paid, one is about who gets a massage, whatever. You can cut this out in so many different ways. And we can create up what the rights mean. We can create up what the implications of having those rights mean anymore. But the nice thing about it, we can also do it for the real world. The existing world, we can make it work for that. We can model that, and then we can model totally new stuff. But the way we get people, the strategy of adoption is that we make it work for what they're currently doing it. We get them into a unified interface, and then we move them forward with, wow, have you thought about doing this? And where I want to get to is, I want to be able to sit down and just work on a project here, project there, whatever, and just change my time. It gets cataloged. I mean, you can do this at the moment with a time manager like Harvest or whatever, but does it join up with something else or join up something else? But we'll plug into Harvest's API. We'll let people continue to use Harvest, but they'll also be able to use other things as well. And but yeah, exactly. The whole thing becomes a lot more fluid. So traditionally, when I want to create a chair, I have to build a company, have a bank account, have to register a company in the country, build a bank, get a bank account, get an office, and then I'm stuck. It's like it's like mortgage. It's like it's this chain to this system. But if I'm just building stuff, I'll contribute to this project. I did 1% of that project, and then it sells or whatever. Or has some revenue coming in, whatever. And now we're just individual human beings in a sea of collaborations, and because everything is interconnected and interoperable, and the apps understand what rights mean and how they operate. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's self-organization. That's what that this is what
it seems like basically to me that you can have a bunch of people experimenting with making up different configurations of how you divvy up power and rights controls. And then you see who actually has success. And those people who have success based on how they've configured this can sell their configuration and maybe get a percentage of the profits or something. And the next group who uses it.
Maybe, yeah. We there's no reason why we couldn't. I don't know about doing it, but there's no reason why we couldn't attach a rights to a workflow created. I don't know.
Nesting.
Yeah. And
I mean, I think that's critical though, that if you build a workflow, then you can kind of sell that workflow,
or at least get some revenue if someone gets revenue from using it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And it's up to you.
That's what I mean.
And it could be multiple ways of doing it. And I think it is important to say what you're saying, because people do need that's why blockchain has taken off so much, because it's attached to money, and even though there's a coding element and then there's a coin element, but they're kind of mixed together, and that's what makes it attractive in a lot of ways. That's what's kicked it off, I think, massively. If it was just coding, then it's just coding. It's kind of, but the fact that there's money is that a lot of money has been poured into it in order to make it happen. But maybe in this way that we could have the same thing.
Another thing that I'm seeing is that you could have a meeting, even a Zoom meeting, of rights holders,
Yeah,
of major rights holders,
yeah,
and get them to agree by using these visual tools
right.
on how they could combine their assets together for people to use under certain what conditions, and how, and basically negotiating a settlement on terms of who would own what and who would control what. This
There you
is
go. There you go. There you go. There you go. You got it now.
uh, insane.
It's insane. It's insane. And so I'm walking around going, this is insane. This is insane. But we need to go. We need it. We need to go to the next step, the next step, you know. So I'm operating in both worlds. Yeah. Like it is insane. We know it's insane. Okay, let's get some more service providers on board. And you know, it's kind of, it's funny that this is not a foregone conclusion. I mean, that's what I bring myself back to it. You know, the reason why this took off is because it's a bubble, because Kendra.io got some funding, and we're non-profit, and we don't need to, I mean, what I mean is we don't need to worry about the profit motive at this stage, or any, ever, as far as I'm concerned. But we do need to think, although it is insane, we need to think, we also, one foot in the insane world. I think that's really good because it motivates me, because it's world peace. We're going to get world peace like this, right? It's just obvious, right? But, and freedom for everyone, you know, it's just, and then the other thing is, what strategy do I need to put in place to ensure it doesn't get taken out? I work with businesses. If you work with businesses and make your tool a commercial necessity, then, like the internet, if the internet didn't have business on it, then it would get taken out because it's just hippies, and we don't want hippies to be free, you know. So there's that, and getting money in and stuff like that. So it's both. Yeah, that's where I'm operating from.
So, I mean, okay, so this is something else that I'm seeing, and I'm gonna describe it too, because I've been thinking about this a lot.
Yeah.
So I think the future of IP actually lies in, you know, right now it's all about the law and following the law.
Yeah.
If you are an IP holder, you can pretty much decide what you want to do with the things that you own. Right?
Sure. Yeah.
So people seem not to be seeing yet that there is incredible new type of revenue stream that can develop when you do opt-in legal structures that you create,
right,
where you basically give people the rights to use the IP under certain conditions. And then you can, instead of simply licensing the music for movies, you know, groups can create movies and like really advanced kind of collaborative technologies using this stuff. But the revenue stream is different. It comes from the co-ownership of the collaborative technology, not the actual piece of music or video.
Right.
No one is thinking like this. Well, I wouldn't say no one. There are fewer people.
I don't know. There's so many models out there. I mean, I'm coming across new models all the time, so I don't know. Yeah, but yeah.
I would think it would be really amazing to have people who you know, have companies with APIs.
Yeah.
And also to have at the same table to have copyright holders, so IP holders who own a bunch of stuff, kind of like talking about.
Well, my it depends what you are talking about in terms of an event or a call or whatever. Much as I like to do big things, I'm finding the most satisfying is having small conversations with 1, 2, 3 people, and that kind of you know, deliver the plan, see what involvement can be made, and see what we can start building. Let's start building something. I've got a number of conversations going, and they're all kind of like, can we build this? Can we build that? You know, and just like this. So that's the most satisfying, because then it's not then something is getting done in each case. Something is getting done in each case. So and that might be a build up to something bigger. Yeah, and I'm also sort of looking at my energy flow and stuff like that. And if it's the bigger something goes, the more constrained it needs to be. So that, because what happens in a small conversation like this is we can just riff on everything and it's all good and there's lots of time and space to do that. But but in a larger space, if things are left undefined, we everyone is doing that, and it's mayhem. But so although with I don't know if you knew or heard of Collab Camp. It kind of happened after WeShare one time, and what we were doing.
Who put that on?
Which WeShare or Collab Camp? Me and a bunch of other people that were WeShareians.
Okay.
And we kind of broke away because WeShare didn't want to do. There was something called WeShare Labs, and they didn't want to do it everywhere all the time. So we created Collab Camp because we wanted to do it all the time everywhere. But we did it a few times, but it didn't carry on that much. But it's kind of that model of just getting a bunch of people in a room. And it could be people who contribute and people who come with ideas, and then people come with project half finished, and we just self-organize and self-hack, you know. And it was great. So that's possible as well, where you create, rather than creating too many constraints, you create a structure around how people can interconnect and how they can, and then that could really be good, actually, because really what I want is self-organization. I want to enable people to self-organize, to give people the tools to self-organize. And the thing that stops them is data portability and interoperability between all the systems that everyone uses.
And I would add the complexity of making group decisions.
Yes.
Hundreds of hours of discussion and talking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so this is okay, we don't have a voting module in there, but I mean, okay, this isn't, I'm looking at yours, but if you change the sliders on those bars, then that becomes a voting module,
Okay.
Yeah. But obviously it's just a graphic representation for a number of different things, depending on what we want it to be.
Well, I mean, what it seems to me, which is really exciting, is that you can build a company and have like 5 different aspects to it. And then you may break it down so someone has more voting rights in a particular aspect that they're actually qualified to speak on. And then someone else might have more.
Yes.
Make that clear and visible.
Yeah. Liquid democracy.
Way.
Yeah. And if they're closer to if they're closer geographically to the thing where the decision which it affects, then it's kind of that. Then they have a larger impact on the vote. I'm just going to turn my oven off. Yeah, all of that. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, this is
all possible, and the thing that's important is we're just keeping it simple in terms of the what the how it can be displayed, how it can be So anytime someone says, "Oh, can we use a bold font for that?" I'm going, "No, don't put HTML in there." As in, let's not. If it's the user who's going to decide the font, the color scheme, everything, the language, they will decide all of this. It's really not about the service providers getting any display decisions. They just provide data.
Yes. You remember MySpace and how crazy people went to?
Yeah. And there's a place for that, but just not. This is not the place for that. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay,
Cool.
this is pretty amazing.
Yeah, great.
So tell me again what you are looking for. You
Yeah.
are looking for
So
people, like a group of how many people, and who are the people you want to come in and start using it and
yeah,
experimenting?
it's. I don't know about the how many.
Uh-huh.
One is great. Um, the the level at which ideally would be great to have people is to come in and they haven't perhaps an idea, or they can make up an idea about how to work with either we get in a service provider who will have enough time to work with us on creating an adapter and the workflows, or we get someone in to who has a need themselves and will help us, will coach and help us build an adapter. So people that are, I could really use this for this. I could really use this. I want to list and I want to edit my, I've got a service that has an API and I want to edit my things on this dashboard. And then we just start riffing on that theme and see what happens. And yeah, that's it. And better in the music, media, photography, video realm, that would be cool. But if it isn't, I'm cool with that too. You know, I'm looking at other ways and other things as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you could have something like this, but with 100 different people.
It's there's no limit. And we can group people and we can group ideas and group concepts and yeah.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. I mean, you know, scales to the world, you know.
Okay. Oh, this is pretty incredible.
Yeah. So we've got the blue sky, which is so 1 foot in the blue sky and 1 foot in the kind of like getting funding and getting in businesses and getting, or it doesn't have to, you know, business, anyone with an API and getting users, real users who are wanting to see something work with, but it's best if they're not just like, oh, dude, can you create this for me? Actually, it'd be best if, oh, how do I do this? How do I create this? That's who we want at this stage. Eventually, yeah, we'll get the how, oh, can you create this for me? Because then we'll have enough resources. But at the moment, yeah, it's much better if we can, I want to train people to create these things.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Great.
Great.
This is really exciting. Thank you for showing me.
Awesome.
Really
Awesome.
appreciate it.
Great, wonderful. Well, you know, I'm always around. This is what I'm working on. So just get back to me and you know, with anything, anytime. Yeah. And let's just grow this. Yeah. That's
All
been
right,
really
great.
good for me as well, just to isolate out what we need. Thank you.